For those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Alex Tatum, and I stand before you today as representative of the Board of Trustees. My goal in the next few minutes is twofold. First is to outline the role and the importance that this church has played in my life, and second, to convey why I think it is our collective responsibility as members of this church and congregation to financially support the CCOT mission in the present and the days ahead. My wife and I moved to Topsfield approximately 7 years ago from downtown Boston. We were attracted to the small community, the great school systems, and the proximity to extended family. My wife grew up in neighboring Georgetown, so knew Topsfield rather well. As for me, I had never been to Topsfield before we started looking at houses to purchase. Growing up in Acton, a suburb approximately 40 minutes away, I did not play an active or even passive role with a church during my childhood, as I didn't attend church really at all. It's not a knock on my parents the way that they raised me. It's just we were focused on other activities that drew my attention and resources, namely playing sports such as hockey. From the time I was 5 until after I graduated college, sometimes 5 days a week, mostly year-round. Many of my friends growing up, though, did attend church regularly, and I remember being slightly jealous of those friends, as it seemed that they knew there was something bigger than them, even at a younger age. After we had moved to Topsfield and had 3 kids by this point, my parents and my in-laws were continuously asking us when we were going to have our kids baptized. After hearing about this topic numerous times, I decided to call the CCOT main office. A few days later, I received a phone call from Martin. The short version of the conversation was this. Martin basically said that I would need to commit to this church before he would baptize our kids in this building. I asked further questions around timing, and he politely cut me off and said, just show up and we can talk. What he was doing was testing me, making sure that I looked at this church with a more permanent light than someone that simply wanted to do a drive-by baptism. After that phone call, I was a little put off, if I can be completely candid, but looking back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Fast forward 2 years. My mother unexpectedly died at the age of 70 while visiting my brother in Texas in December of 2015. My father, who many of you have probably seen with us here at church, was in a terrible place. He had lost his wife of 45 years and his best friend. He immediately moved in with me and my family, and it was like having another child to take care of. We came to Christmas Eve kids service a few weeks later. While walking out, I reintroduced myself to Martin and reminded him about the nature of our phone call we had had a few years prior. He laughed and said that he remembered with a devilish smile. But you could tell that he was genuinely glad that we had come that evening and that we made a nice connection at that moment. After that night, my wife and I decided to make church a priority. We both knew that church would help us heal, provide spiritual fulfillment that we currently lacked, and fill an emotional void in our lives at that point. We started attending church regularly. In addition, our kids enjoyed learning about God and going to Sunday school. Overall, it was a positive experience from everyone's vantage point. As I've grown up and matured, I have looked for more direction in my life, and God and this church have provided for that. My wife and I now openly talk about the role God plays in both our lives, and just as important, the role it has and will continue to play in our kids' lives. This growing foundation will help guide them as they grow up and mature into adults. In this crazy world we live in, the church reinforces positive qualities in people, things like kindness, generosity, and spiritual fulfillment, which our kids will continually be exposed to as a result of CCOT, its people, and its mission. While I've highlighted the role and importance that this church has played in our families' lives, I would be remiss if I didn't identify all the operating needs of this church that deserve financial stewardship, as we benefit from all of them. Our buildings have been a focal point and meeting place on the common for not only our congregation, but the community since 1703, when the third meeting house was constructed in the church's current location. These historic structures are recognized by the town, the state, and the federal government as significant to the history of our nation. They are more than monuments because we maintain them in good condition, we use them for our programs, and community groups use them for programs that reach a wide audience. Our buildings are the visible symbol of our congregation and the home of our church work. Whether it is Sunday services, vigils, music concerts, or Bible studies, and reading groups, or the countless other activities that occur within our halls, these buildings serve as the bedrock of our congregation. Furthermore, it is through stewardship that we're able to have a full-time dedicated church staff, send people on mission trips, and support our local community. We are a lucky church in a lot of ways in that we have the benefit of endowment monies given by former members, folks that have come before us that felt having the church thrive and survive after they were gone was important enough to them to give into the future, in perpetuity to the church, and not just while they were alive and part of this congregation. This is a tremendous gift to us in the present, and I think we need to consider what our legacy to this church will be as well. It can begin with pledging generously in the present, this year, right now. Please think of CCOT as you and your family begin to make your 2018 financial plans. Thank you very much.